right, so this is how one way to get started. So I just drew a box freehand that kind of sat in the middle of my page, and then I just kind of visually found the center of this, but you know, you could always use a ruler if you have that at home, and find, you know, the center that way. But I'm just kind of do this just by sight, and I've created 4 different boxes. And I'm showing you the size. I'm making these, you know, fairly large. You could always divide your paper into 4 as well, and they could be quite large. Depends on how big you want to make this, but you don't want to make this itty bitty. You want it to be substantial so you have some areas to paint. And then I went ahead and labeled them monochromatic, which is going to be one hue and different tones of that hue, complementary, analogous, and triadic. And now I'm going to try to draw the same composition. I'm going to make mine abstract. So whatever I put in one box, I'm going to put in another box. And I'm just doing this for a kind of abstract effect. And it, you know, it's going to be, you know, not exactly, probably, I'm not measuring, but just to show you, I would just take one shape and put that in. So I have that diamond in all of them. And I'm just going through and creating shapes and overlaps. Maybe I'll put a circle in the center of all of them. And that went through the bottom. So it's kind of fun to just plan this out. And of course you can draw a little scene. You could do like a little scene in each of them if you wanted a little landscape or a face, but we don't want to spend a ton of time just creating the compositions, because we are going to paint them. And I am using my pencil fairly light. So yeah, I'm just creating shapes here and just seeing what looks interesting, just so I can see what the colors look like. This is really just like a design puzzle. Here, just creating some interesting little overlaps. I do want some kind of like triangular form. I feel like one more shape. I think I'm going to go with this trapezoid thing. Because the triangle feels too small. So yeah, just making little decisions. And I will also show you one other way to approach this. Okay, so I have some different shapes overlapping. I could add more. I want to keep it pretty simple though. Will I add more? No, probably not. I think I'll leave it like that. So I have these different compositions, and now I'm just gonna paint them in. I'm gonna try out some different color schemes. So I have monochromatic, so I can choose one color and play around with different light and dark tones of that color. So I'm gonna add some water to this shape just to start. And I think I wanna do this like reds. So using my palette, I have, and you can also use your little mixing palette as well. I have some bold reds here. And I think I'll actually mix these two. I'm gonna mix right in the lid since I don't have my palette next to me. But I think I'll mix the crimson and the cadmium. And just create something really light. Right? And using more pigment, create something more dark. And I like mixing the two reds. This is interesting. And so I have a little less water on the paper. more pigment on my brush, and I'm getting a more crisp look, but you can have it be more blendy if you'd like. This is watercolor, but you can see I'm creating a monochromatic. I'm just going to use this one hue. I can use both the warm and cool reds together, but I'm just going to use my reds. If I want, there is a more reddish brown in here. This is the, I believe it's the sienna, and it's got a little bit of a orangey reddish brown. So you can mix that in too, why not? But mix it with your red so it's not just brown on its own, or it'll look more analogous. So yeah, you can start to play around with, you know, maybe that's the background that's darker. I'm gonna use my larger brush here, and that's the big idea. You're gonna play around with what colors fit each color scheme. So you'll probably have to refer back to your notes. You could even open up the slideshow and look at examples again, or do some searching on your own of artists and artworks that are strong in color schemes. Not every artist uses one of these more traditional color schemes, but I would say every artist does, you know, painters especially, they really consider their colors while they're working. And some of them have just learned to kind of internalize the color wheel into their own, you know, into their mind, and know how to just kind of access those color relationships by intuition. But we're being really, as a lot of us are beginners, we're being very thoughtful about what colors we're using, planning it out. And a lot of artists who have been working for years plan out their colors ahead of time. Kind of making that a background. And I like this brown mixed in. It's adding an interesting warmth to the monochromatic palette here. There we go. So you'll see that they will all look a bit different and have a different feeling based on, you know, what I'm putting into these. You know, it's a little too cool. Let's see, warm that up. And I'm also going to play with light and dark so that my shapes stick out. I'm going to change the hue, but also the saturation by adding more water. If you want to experiment with that white, let's try it out. Let's see what that does. Oh, that is interesting. So yeah, typically there isn't white in a set, but this set has some. I don't know if it's much different than adding water. You guys can try it out and see what you think. So I like that. And try out different combinations. Like I'm gonna mix the crimson with the brown sienna and see what happens. Oh, it's interesting, kind of bleeds. So yeah, you're gonna test this out, try out each one of these. Let's move on to the complementary just to kind of keep going along as another idea. For this one, we want to use two colors across from each other. So you can think of those Elmer's glue versus Christmas colors versus Lakers. Those are all ways to remember. So with this, you have some secondary colors, so you're going to have to, you know, mix them again. So, you know, if I wanted to do violet and yellow, I could think about, well, what kind of violets do I want to use? I have my warm blue and my cool blue. I think I'm going to do a violet with my cool blue because it's a little brighter, and my cool red. Make my violet that way. But of course I can do, you know, kind of tertiary colors. So if I do like a blue violet, I'm going to probably do the orange yellow, right? Because blue and orange are complementary. So look at your wheel. It can be tertiary colors. So I'm trying to get that blue violet the way I want it to look. There we go. So I have blue violet. And I'm going to try just dry brushing this one right onto the paper and not adding water first, so you can kind of see the difference. So I have a little more control kind of to get that crisp edge. But you know, you don't have to do kind of paint by number. You could do more flowy. What if you were painting like a little beach scene in each of these and you want to layer the water? There's lots of ways to approach this. I just wanted to try something more geometric for mine. So I think I do need a little more of that violet color. So here, let's add that more. And then I would create more of a yellow orange to go with this one. See what happens. So I know already my cadmium has a little bit more of an orangey feel to it. And I'm going to put a little bit of cadmium red. So I have kind of a yellow orange to go with my blue violet. Let's try that out. I think it almost needs more cadmium. There we go. That looks really pretty. And you can see already it's got a very different mood than the one next to it. So that's the big idea. Basically creating a little like paint by number for yourself and testing out these different color schemes. And I'm leaving it open. You don't have to use stencils or shapes like I did. You can draw a little scene, but something simple that you can replicate 4 times. You know, nothing complicated, and you don't want to leave a lot of graphite on the paper. You don't want it to be like, you know, tons of pencil that you have to smudge. So again, I would use your H pencil to get to do these sketches, and then you're just going to be painting them in and trying out, you know, how this looks. Maybe it gets a little more orangey down here. There we go. See how far you can push it till it still feels complementary though. All right. So I will show you the final finished one in the assignment so that you can see how it looks. But that's the idea. I would go ahead and choose 3 colors for this one that are next to each other. You know, maybe yellow, orange, and red, or maybe red, violet, and orange, or maybe green, yellow, and blue. And then for this one, I could do the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, or I could do the secondary colors, orange, violet, and purple. All right, so that is the idea for studio time.